2014 was shaping up to be just like any other year of competitive Pokemon. The circuit had crowned various national champions and Worlds was quickly approaching. After a surprisingly ordinary year, no one really knew how unprecedented the events that were yet to unfold would be. For competitive Pokemon, 2014 was a year unlike any other. I'm referring, of course, to the World Championship Finals. South Korea's legendary Seijin Park would be facing off against one of America's newest threats, Jody Azzarelli. In this matchup, Seijin was considered the favorite. His resume sported the second place at the World Championships in 2011 in the Seniors Division, which is a younger division made up of 11 to 15-year-olds, and back-to-back top 8s at both the 2012 and 2013 World Championships. To add to this already impressive resume, he dominated in his own country, winning 3 South Korean nationals in 2011, 2013, and 2014 in the Masters Division, which is the division for 15 and up. While Seijin has always been admired as a winner, Seijin's team building stands almost in a league of its own. His teams have routinely had massive impacts on every format he played in. At his national tournament in 2011, Seijin won the Masters Division when he should have been playing in the Seniors Division. Unfortunately for the Masters he faced off against, Korea didn't have a Seniors Division at the time, so Seijin settled for the only trophy available to him. Jody, on the other hand, was the underdog. He was newer to VGC, but people in the scene knew he shouldn't be underestimated. He'd had impressive performances throughout 2014, and was a part of a group of players who had been having a number of consistent results throughout the format. Additionally, both players had unusual, creative Pokemon choices on their teams, which meant as a spectator, it wasn't going to be a matchup we were especially used to seeing. The final start and the games are close, but Seijin ends up winning 2-0. At this point, we still have no idea that this Worlds result are going to be unlike anything we've seen before or after. The weekend draws to a close, we say goodbye to our friends and everyone begins their journeys home. The internet, on the other hand, explodes. The reaction to Seijin's, and more specifically Pachirisu's win, is unprecedented. Something about Pachirisu, maybe its cuteness, maybe its smallness, maybe its squirrelness, has resonated with people all over the world, and they love it. To many people, Pachirisu represented a narrative that people love to associate with Pokemon, that you should always try and win with your favorite Pokemon. Pachirisu doesn't look very flashy. It's a little electric squirrel, not unlike Pikachu, and when you see it facing down against gigantic dragon-type Pokemon, it looks a little out of place. I think for many people, Pachirisu felt like the ultimate underdog, like it wasn't even supposed to have qualified for the tournament, let alone made it to the finals. And they loved it. There was incredible fan art at first, but it didn't stop there. South Korea soon held parades for Seijin and Pachirisu's win, specifically 8 parades held over 4 days with exclusive merchandise featuring Pachirisu, special VGC and TCG tournaments, and special meet and greets with Mr. Junichi Masuda from Game Freak and, of course, Seijin Park himself. However, the event may have been too successful for its own good. The first parade was so popular that there were serious overcrowding concerns, and the majority of the rest of the parades had to be called off. For those of you not super familiar with VGC, allow me to be the first to assure you that this celebration isn't typical. To my knowledge, no other world champion has had any form of parade or exclusive merchandise given out, so this experience was incredibly special to witness and be a part of the community for. Especially given how close Seijin had been to victory in the past 3 years. That narrative I mentioned earlier about how you should win with your favorites and that Pachirisu was this lackluster Pokemon that Seijin only used because he loved it, isn't entirely true. The truth of the matter is that Pachirisu was an incredibly intelligent and specific choice for one particular tournament, and the wisdom of this decision resulted in Seijin's victory. I want to tell you about the secrets behind Pachirisu's success. Now, bear with me here, because we have to set the stage a bit. The year is 2014. VGC players are faced with 2 major changes in their competitive scene. The first being the introduction of a new generation on a new system, Generation 6's Pokemon X and Y. It also means that the current VGC rule set is condensed to what is known as the Regional Dex. A Regional Dex format means only the Pokemon available prior to unlocking the National Dex in a game are legal. In other words, it's the most restricted type of format, with the least amount of Pokemon available. Regional Dexes tend to be interesting for a number of reasons. With less Pokemon available, the overall power level tends to be lower than formats with more options. However, the number of good defensive tools also tends to be lower. X and Y introduced a really interesting challenge in the form of Mega Evolution. Mega Evolution allowed certain Pokemon to reach incredible power levels of offensive potency, but a substantial balancing issue made it clear that the defensive tools available couldn't really keep up. The biggest offender of such was Mega Kangaskhan. With incredible base stats, great defensive typing, a broken ability, and a phenomenal offensive move pool, Kangaskhan dominated much of the format. It had so many tools. Fake Out offered priority and flinch, Power Up Punch gave +2 attack and dealt damage, Sucker Punch was a strong priority move, and worst of all, Return was a no drawback strong stab move. As a fun fact, in order to balance Kangaskhan in Generation 7, it no longer learned Power Up Punch, its ability Parental Bond was significantly weakened, and the base power for Sucker Punch was dropped as well. Most VGC formats tend to skew special, but 2014 had a diverse pool of physical attackers that commanded respect. One of which, Talonflame, used its powerful priority Brave Bird, often coupled with Choice Band or Life Orb, to put immense pressure on teams. Talonflame would also go on to receive a nerf in later games. Garchomp returned as a rather large threat due to its high base stats, ability to outspeed Kangaskhan, and good synergy with Tyranitar, who was another strong physical attacker at the time. One of the ways people tried to slow down these powerful physical threats was Intimidate, but unfortunately many of the Intimidate users just weren't strong enough. Nowadays we have powerful Pokemon like Landorus T and Incineroar that offer Intimidate support, but due to 2014's limited selection of Pokemon, the best Intimidate users were non-Mega Salamence, Scrafty, and Mawile, to name a few. So, 2014 is a year with many physical attackers exerting tons of pressure, and one of the best counters to physical attackers in Intimidate is struggling. Kangaskhan has dominated much of the format, winning US and Japan Nationals, which are two of the last tournaments before Worlds. But in South Korea, Seijin wins Nationals with a Rain team, featuring Mega Mawile as its Mega. I'm not entirely sure if it's because of Seijin's victory in Korea, or just due to everyone wanting to counter Kangaskhan, but the metagame began to shift. In fact, it shifts pretty violently, and it shifts towards Mega Mawile being the choice of Mega on most teams. In fact, 3rd through 7th place at the World Championships this year would all utilize Mega Mawile, and the highest placing Kangaskhan player finishes at 14th with Germany's Marcus Stadter. Quick note, this wasn't the first time Mega Mawile had been used or had become popular, but the shift right before the World Championships felt much more significant in terms of usage than anything the format had seen thus far. So, why is all this relevant when talking about Pachirisu? Well, Seijin is building for the World Championships, and he notices something interesting: Mega Gyarados. It has quite a few things going for it. It's a good Intimidate user, which, as we established, is hard to come by. It can set up with Dragon Dance. It has much better physical bulk than regular Gyarados, which, when combined with Intimidate, makes it rather bulky on the physical side. It also has a number of positive matchups in the metagame. Talonflame, like we mentioned, does not enjoy facing down Mega Gyarados because it gets knocked out by unboosted Waterfall. Garchomp doesn't match up well into Mega Gyarados because it can't do much damage and has to choose between Rock Slide, which is really bad if Gyarados Mega Evolves, or Earthquake, which is really bad if Gyarados doesn't Mega Evolve. Gyarados' Earthquake also hits Mega Mawile for super effective damage, and, speaking of Earthquake, one of the most popular Pokemon in this format is Rotom, which Mega Gyarados can hit with ground moves thanks to Mold Breaker ignoring Levitate. Not to mention Aegislash, another popular Pokemon, really hates Mega Gyarados for a number of reasons. I could go on about specific Pokemon, but I think you get the gist. There's also one additional factor here that shouldn't be understated: surprise factor. Gyarados was actually relatively popular earlier in the format, but Ludicolo and Safety Goggles Zapdos' rise made Gyarados' life really difficult, especially since it doesn't get a good flying move for Pokemon like Ludicolo or Amoonguss. So, it's right before Worlds, and Gyarados is really not a common Mega Evolution. Like, at all. And Seijin recognizes that not only is Gyarados a good choice for the current metagame, but it also is likely to catch his opponents off guard, as Gyarados has all but disappeared from the metagame. Pokemon is a game about making choices, and the less information you have, the harder it is to make the right choices. Okay, Wolf, but this video was supposed to be about Pachirisu, and all you're doing is talking about Gyarados. Well, I think we're finally ready. We've established that Gyarados was a good choice for the World Championships given what was popular. We have not established how Seijin was going to support it. Seijin identifies that Gothitelle is a good support Pokemon here. He chooses to run Tickle, Thunder Wave, and Psyshock on it. Thunder Wave provides speed control, and although it looks a little surprising, given that Gothitelle learns Trick Room, this is Generation 6 Thunder Wave, before it was nerfed. That means it never misses and quarters rather than halves a Pokemon's speed. As Gyarados and the rest of Seijin's team didn't end up benefiting from Trick Room, Thunder Wave was a better choice. Tickle can weaken opponents offensively and defensively, and synergizes with Psyshock in addition to Mega Gyarados, and Shadow Tag stops opponents from leaving the field after being weakened, with the added benefit of preventing Intimidate and Fake Out cycling, which would commonly be used to weaken Gyarados. Due to Gothitel's bulk relative to the rest of the format, it was good at sticking around. And remember how Mega Mawile was picking up in popularity again? Well, Gothitelle outsped most of them and could use Tickle to lower their attack before they even moved. So we have Gothitelle for stat support and Gyarados for offense, but it wasn't enough to allow Gyarados to do everything it had to do. The next step many players take when they have a Pokemon that wants to set up is to add a redirector, and Seijin knows how valuable redirection is, maybe more than anyone entering Worlds in 2014. He brought Follow Me Magmar to the World Championships just the year before. Generally, if you wanted redirection in 2014, there was one standard go-to Pokemon, Amoonguss. Amoonguss offered Spore and Rage Powder support and often even held the Rocky Helmet item to match up positively into Kangaskhan. When Gyarados was popular earlier in the format, Amoonguss was a premium partner. However, there was a major issue with Amoonguss. Rage Powder is a move that redirects all opponents' moves to the user, unless the opponent is immune to powder moves, and two major threats to Gyarados happen to be immune to powder moves, Ludicolo and Safety Goggle Zapdos. Therefore, Seijin turned to other ways of redirection that wouldn't struggle versus those two. In other words, he needed to use Follow Me instead of Rage Powder, as Follow Me can't be ignored by Grass types or Safety Goggles users. And this is where, finally, Pachirisu comes into play. There were 4 legal Pokemon with Follow Me in 2014. Smeargle, Furret, Lucario, and Pachirisu. Seijin chooses Pachirisu, likely due to it being the bulkiest of the 4, having the best defensive typing, and having strong support options as well. Zapdos matches up terribly into Pachirisu, and although Ludicolo doesn't look too bad on paper against the Electric Squirrel, we haven't considered Pachirisu's other moves yet. Seijin gives his Pachi Nuzzle and Super Fang, 2 devastating support moves. Nuzzle allows Pachirisu to spread Paralysis around without fearing Taunt, another benefit over Amoonguss. Paralysis is especially helpful for Gyarados, as it allows Gyarados to outspeed faster Pokemon like Kangaskhan without a Dragon Dance, and also synergizes nicely with Waterfall's Flinch chance for even higher probability to stop an opponent from attacking. Super Fang ensures Pachirisu has solid presence on the field. You can't ignore it, as doubling into its partner risks the partner Pokemon protecting, while Pachirisu either spreads Paralysis or takes half of your health. Pachirisu also has the same benefit of Gyarados we mentioned earlier, the element of surprise. I'm sure some of Seijin's opponents didn't even realize that Pachirisu learned Follow Me, and in many cases, Seijin's Pachirisu may have been the first Pachirisu they had ever played against. In short, Pachirisu was the perfect partner for Mega Gyarados. Volt Absorb and Follow Me protected against electric attacks, Follow Me allowed for easier Dragon Dances, Nuzzle and Super Fang disrupted and weakened opposing teams, and even Gyarados' Intimidate increased Pachi's survivability. Seijin rounds out his team with Focus Sash Garchomp, Life Orb Talonflame, and Choice Scarf Gardevoir. These offensive and mostly frailer Pokemon were able to reap the same benefits as Gyarados, though to a lesser extent, from either or both of Gothitelle and Pachirisu. Even though Pachi was originally selected to protect Gyarados, Seijin did an exceptional job selecting other Pokemon that could use Pachirisu's support well. So, it isn't like Pachirisu was bad or something Seijin only chose because he liked it. Instead, it was a very niche Pokemon that filled a specific role he was looking for, due to the unique traits it provided. Pachirisu alone wasn't enough to net Seijin a win. He had to make a number of really intelligent decisions going into the tournament, and his ability to find additional Pokemon that also benefited from the existing support he had made his team even more dangerous. I think it's worth noting that Pachirisu was, in many ways, a product of its time. It hasn't had any relevant success since Seijin's 2014 victory. This is in large part due to the 2014 metagame being quite limited in the Pokemon allowed. This is an example of an interesting phenomenon where how strong a Pokemon is depends largely on the other Pokemon around it. Pachirisu was one of the strongest Pokemon at Worlds 2014, but failed to get tournament results even a year later. I don't say this to put down Pachirisu, but to emphasize that knowing how to use a Pokemon sometimes isn't as important as knowing when to use a Pokemon. In conclusion, Pachirisu was a phenomenal choice to support other intelligent choices Seijin made going into Worlds 2014. Even though many viewed Pachirisu as underpowered compared to the Pokemon around it, it was actually due to the overall decreased power level of the format that allowed it to really thrive and keep up with the Pokemon it faced. Seijin's identification of the strengths of his support Pokemon in Gothitelle and Pachirisu, and how to use Pokemon that benefited from the specific support he already had, are a testament to his incredible team building skills. If you enjoyed hearing about Seijin's victory, I recommend you check out his Twitter and Twitch. He creates great content and consistently uses other underexplored Pokemon. He was also nice enough to proofread the script and make sure I didn't miss anything, which was a massive help. Please show him your support.